Hi, everybody. I am coming on. It is July 5th, 2025. It's 11:35 p.m. I can't believe I'm on so early. It's been so crazy behind the scenes, getting everything done. And so, my aim is always 10 o'clock, and time just flies all the time. So I'm glad that I'm on before midnight. We are at day 1799 since Richard was forcibly removed from his barracks room there on Fort Bliss, and his life was taken from him. And every day I come on, every day, uh, because there we're just we want justice. We want justice. We want accountability. We have the identities of the prime suspects in the murder of our son, those that also aided and abetted, covered it up. And we want justice. We want them to be held accountable. And also, we want our son's remains. We want our son's remains. We know that they had our son's remains, that they might still have our son's remains, that they know where our son's remains are. And in the last week, it's been a very difficult week with the exposure of the narco mass dumping ground of rotting bodies in Juarez, Mexico, which is a stone's throw from El Paso and Fort Bliss. It's right there. They're like Siamese cities, and 400 bodies are reported. It's probably more than that. And this is tied to really a narco cartel tied um, funeral network that's tied to the criminal trafficking. Because if you're going to engage in this kind of criminal activity where, you know, substances, human trafficking, of course, weapons and ammunition. Where are you going to get those from? You're going to infiltrate Fort Bliss, right? You're going, and they have lots of equipment, they have parts, they have everything. And there was grand theft larceny going on of our military base. I'm absolutely convinced of it. Richard was a whistleblower. Um, Exposing that. And of course, President Trump knew that at the time when he became president um, at 2017, and when he took his oath, and 2018, 2019, when you look at his executive orders, Richard was a whistleblower for him. And there's a difference between a witness and a whistleblower because Richard was a soldier. Richard was a soldier on Fort Bliss. He, in his official capacity, was a witness and filed reports and was a whistleblower. Okay. So he was, whistleblowers have a protected status, and so do witnesses, but whistleblowers are, I'll let the legal people explain it, but I know that it is a very protected status, and they couldn't have him be a whistleblower. They had to discredit him, and that's why they um, targeted him with Bob Moore. Don't forget, Bob Moore was a co conspirator of this, targeting Richard to frame him, set him up, um, and discredit him and absolutely retaliate against him. And of course, it led to um, just severe uh, retaliation and the taking of his life. And so this was, this explains 2020 very well. The border area, the front door of the United States, the front door of the United States that is known for the criminal trafficking. And with Fort Bliss there, it's just ripe for it, right? And with all the tunnels there, don't forget, El Paso has lots of tunnels that go right into Juarez because Juarez, Ciudad Juarez, they're, like one big city, but of course, two countries separated by a fence, separated by a border. And that border, if it's not secured, if they're not doing their security jobs properly, then it's a mess. It is absolutely criminal trafficking. And it went turbo force in 2021. It went turbo force in 2021. Um, and so that just uh, uh, explains this whole area. And this funeral business network, there's so much cross-border business, okay? Cross-border business. And the funeral home business is no different. And, Purchase uh, was funding Bill Hicks, and their main, they're from Juarez, right? So Purchase Funeral Homes, but they were given the right to work in El Paso. I don't know why. I think it's very dangerous why they got the permission to work, to set up business. Lots of businesses, half a dozen maybe, in El Paso, maybe more. Big business there, Purchases, and it's the number one funder for Bill Hicks, and Bill Hicks is their attorney, right? He is their attorney. So there is a huge conflict of interest because they're absolutely cartel tied. They're cartel tied, and he gets appointed to be the prosecutor, but he doesn't install properly. You see, and people don't pay attention. Of course, we don't pay attention. It's, that's for the legal community around him to pay attention to make sure he's doing it right. And he didn't. He didn't do it right. So he was, a real problem because all the cases, he would botch any case. Anybody that got wind of that he wasn't properly installed could appeal their cases, and they could win. They could win because he wasn't legally installed as a district attorney for the 34th Judicial District, and we've called that out for years now, and the media won't pick it up. They won't pick it up to say he was not legally installed and he had this conflict of interest with this Purchase Funeral Home, which is in cooperation or connection with other funeral homes in El Paso. And this is very, very important to our son's case because we want his remains. What happened to his remains? And we know that at least partial remains ended up in Mexico. And so, um, and we know that there's a common denominator in Richard's case, and that is, there's several common denominators. One, this common denominator that they're connected to the Mormons, that they're Mormons, several of them, lots of them. And then the funeral business, very into the funeral business, and also that they're military, they're connected to Fort Bliss, and that they're cartel tied, So it is, these LLCs that they're involved in for money laundering, the strip joint, the empty parking lot with the storage units, the tactical move storage units, the shipping containers. That's a better word for it. Shipping containers, the trucks, all the trucks, for those tactical move storage units. The all of the evidence in this group, Leilani Hart's confession, uh, and to all of this criminal activity. And then, of course, we have corroborating witness testimony and also whistleblower that identifies Leilani Hart as being involved in Richard's murder, and cover up, murder and cover up and tampering with files and that. So we have all of that. And with CID Tavita Nusa, her relationship with CID Tavita Nusa on Fort Bliss, um, it just everything corroborates and confirms um, our son's murder case, and then his remains. Couldn't have another Vanessa Guillen situation. They had to hide the remains really, really well, and so we want our son's remains. We have the declaration of death in the line of duty that absolutely confirms that Richard was murdered on Fort Bliss in the line of duty for in retaliation for reporting the criminal trafficking. So this whole thing in Juarez, because there is evidence that confirms and implicates purchase funeral homes in this disaster cremation thing, and this is absolutely sacrilege. So as a Christian, the outrage is warranted. Is warranted. Okay, you don't do that to human bodies. Even your worst enemy, you don't do that to. And I even looked up a verse. I want to see if I can find a verse because there's so many things to talk about. But I did look up some verses to make sure that what I was saying was right. Um, you know, even if there's a capital punishment and someone is hung, you don't let them stay there overnight. You take them down. This is Deuteronomy 21:22 through 23. You take them down and you bury them. Okay. Otherwise, because they're under the God's curse, and you know, even an executed criminal deserves a dignified burial. I mean, that's how wonderful God is. Someone that is so evil to him, um, he is says no, they need a dignified burial. So, and there's several verses, and you can look them up. Um, that burying the dead, it has to be an act of compassion. That you clean up their body, that you make sure they're dressed, and you see that in our own traditions. Um, how we treat uh, somebody's body in their death. We need to do it with dignity and and compassion, right? And compassion, and where it's due, honor, and where it's due. So, yeah, this whole thing is so criminal. And, if we were ruled by Christian law, which a lot of our laws are still Christian law, then people would be really rightfully outraged and want accountability for what has happened in Juarez because it was government sanctioned. We know that it was government sanctioned. We know that U.S. aid payments uh, partially funded it. We know that um, that Purchase Funeral Home is implicated with other funeral homes in this atrocity. And so, the diversion of the flood, which is, couldn't be helped, right? Couldn't be helped. Even though something is kind of stinky with that, and I'll talk about that too. Um, we can't lose sight on demanding accountability for that narco dumping ground of rotting bodies. We just can't. And if Purchase is implicated, then Bill Hicks is implicated. And if Bill Hicks is implicated, then Governor Abbott is implicated. And that's because Governor Abbott appointed Bill Hicks, and he did it during a recess appointment where there was no scrutiny at all of Bill Hicks, and he's the bottom of the barrel, y'all. That he has purchased that kind of conflict of interest is just the tip of the iceberg for him. He is absolutely the bottom of the barrel. And for Governor Abbott to put a man such as Bill Hicks right there at the front door of the United States, where there is known criminal trafficking, where there is known security breaches at the border and known security breaches on Fort Bliss, and known an open case for the murder of the Fort Bliss whistleblower soldier Richard Halliday, um, and the Walmart mass shooting. That there was the ongoing active Walmart mass shooting, which is still, that case is still a huge issue. So, for Governor Abbott to have, to say, oops, I didn't know what I was doing, is BS. It really is BS. You got to call it out. You got to call it out. He absolutely knows how important the 34th Judicial District Attorney's office is. And that kind of appointment is just inexcusable. And now with the exposure of the narco mass dumping yard, dumping ground, whatever you want to call it, of rotting bodies, it really is inexcusable. And he needs to be held accountable in this whole government sanctioned disgrace, total disgrace. It's an assault against God. That's what it is. A sacrilege, assault against God. And, God is no buttercup. You don't want him. Um, you don't want his vengeance. There's, we stand no chance unless we have God on our side. And for no accountability for something this despicable is just can't be tolerated, right? Is unacceptable. And of course, there is a really, really good chance of Richard's remains, partial remains, being in that location since Bill Hicks was a co-conspirator with Bob Moore and this group, this cartel-tied group in Richard's case. And I could go into lots of details about his failure as the 34th Judicial District Attorney, but he was really never legitimately that. He was never legitimately that. There is a Texas Constitution that you have to follow in order to be installed properly, and he didn't do it. So he never installed properly. He never, it's like he never went through the threshold. There's things you have to do in order to cross the threshold into that position, and he never did it. The same thing with James Montoya, Mr. 2028 stamp. He is not the legitimate district attorney. The legitimate district attorney is Yvonne Rosales. She's the holdover district attorney. And she knows it. She absolutely knows it. But it's so dangerous right now. The politics is so dangerous. You have to have a lot of courage to assert your position. And James Montoya is not legitimate, so he is risking every case right now. He's risking every case, and Bill Hicks did too. So and Bill, they're just co-conspirators of this because they know it. They know what they're doing. It's their business to know it. So, and getting back to the flood that is really what, if you're in Texas, it's on your mind because it's an absolute disaster, isn't it? It just, um, this 42 feet uh, surge of water in what, 2, 3 hours? Um, that is like that. That just is unheard of even in a tsunami, right? I mean, this is like an inland tsunami. Um, so something is not right, y'all. Something is not right. And those camps by Hunt, Texas, which is Kerrville, Texas, Kerrville County, Texas. There's Hunt, and then the water flows. Um, the Guadalupe River flows eastward, eastward. So, um, yeah, there's a lot of questions that I'm reading about these waters and the control of the water, and people are very suspicious of the water mafia. They're very suspicious. Of course, there was a lot of rain. Of course, I lived in Texas. I was an agricultural engineer assistant, an assistant to the assistant, going through college. So I've traipsed a lot of land in Texas, um, and took a lot of soil samples and lots of soil samples and labeled a lot of soil samples. I understand the hard ground there, and this flash flood and of course, this is the hill country and the way the water flows. And if you go onto Google Earth, I spent time on Google Earth today just going down streets and everything to see how the land um, uh, was laid out, the topography of the land, and how it went into this area. And why would I do that? Why would I care so much about this area? Well, of course, when you're talking about camps and children and these kind of disasters, your prayers automatically go out. You pay attention to know what you're going to pray for. You want to hear the updates, and so you go. You want, and of course, being from Texas, um, you know, having roots in Texas. Um, I wanted to know where this flood was. Where was this Camp Mystic? Where was this Camp Mystic that I have to pray for these victims? These victims, including children, right? Children, the young girls, the girls' camp. Um, and so I went there, and I was absolutely shocked. I briefly put up a post on June 16th. I believe it was June 16th, 2025. I'm quite sure that it was June 16th that I put up a post about a dream that I had. And I had a dream that it just gives me chills because when I went to Google Earth and we were looking at the topography of the area, and there is a dam there. There is a curve in the Guadalupe River there, and there is a dam, and you can go down, you can zoom in on it, and it was like in my dream. That's the chills I got. It was like in my dream, and so I don't know what it means. if people out there are dream interpreters and can interpret this, appreciate it, what you think it means. Um, but I know that they are connected. I know that my dream and this this flooding at Camp Mystic with this dam, this canal dam, um, is connected to my dream that I had on June 16th, June 15th. It was the night of the 15th of 2025. And it was such a powerful dream that I wrote about it, that I made this image, tried to do the best I could. I can tell you that in that image, the teeth of the door below are pointed, and in my dream they were blunted. They were more blunted, like real teeth. Um, but that was a quick put together of my dream, and then when I did take a snapshot of the Google Earth. Let's see if I'm on. I didn't even go and make sure I can see comments. Because I'd love to hear some comments about this dream. And it was such a yeah, there it goes. I can see it now. So, so they were more blunted teeth, and so I put that together really quick on the 16th of June. I looked; it is time stamped, and I did briefly post it on Facebook, but then I took it down because I didn't know what it meant, and it was a little, uh, yeah, I didn't know what it meant, and I still don't know what it means, but I know that they're connected, right? I know that because when we zoomed down on that, just to look at that camp, and I saw that dam area, uh, it was just chilling, absolutely chilling. And so I did post it now again with, yeah. So if anyone is with my thoughts quoted, um, so if you are a dream interpreter, what that means, I just know that something is not right about these camps and this whole water thing. Something, when water surges like that, something is not right. And and the way that Dan Patrick said that he didn't want anybody, the way he said it too, the way he said, we don't need you to bring in your drones. Let me tell you, if that was one of my daughters or my husband or my sons or anybody, if anyone in my family was missing in that flood, you better believe it that I would get anybody that had one of these professional drones to help me search. You better believe it. And for him, the way he said it, go back. I've listened to it so many times already, and it is so creepy. He says it's so creepy. Look, all of those rescuers, they are all trained to work with the people, right? And we can't forget North Carolina and South Carolina and Georgia. We're right there at the foothills. We know when, we have a tea farm not too far from us that we drive up to the mountains, and we go and buy our tea from this private tea farm. And we heard we saw the damage, we heard all the damage. The tea farm was not damaged, but they were in full support mode, helping all of these families. And you remember that FEMA didn't help. There was no, there was no help when help was needed from these officials. And so for Dan Patrick to be so cold, his voice is so cold when he knows that that just happened, that that was a really big issue, that he couldn't be, and he's a politician. He's supposed to be a politician. For him to address the public, especially, don't forget that CID, the command all the way up to Millie, denied us Texas EquiSearch to search for Richard, to search for his remains, right? And they denied us a search anyway, right? Because they never even informed us that our son was missing. They never even informed us. And then when we found out, they took Richard off the rolls and put us in a jurisdictional limbo land where we couldn't get help. And it was us and all of you, our social media, that forced the Army to put Richard back on the rolls to get the help, some help, right? Of course, they're complicit and cover up and all of that, but to get some help that the law forces them to give. The law forces even people that are implicated to give. And maybe that's why God says even the criminal deserves to have a respectful or at least a dignified burial. You know, uh, it's because the law trumps it, right? The law trumps their evil motives. And and I don't mean to use Trump. It's funny to have Trump's name as Trump, and then to have like Raising Cain in the place of Mealy, right? And it's just it's amazing how God works. Instead of Mealy or coward, right? Um, it is really really interesting. Um, but this flood, I just think he's like, we already have helicopters, 16 helicopters in the air, and it's too many. Look, I've lived in Texas. It is huge, huge. You can have loads of helicopters. You can have loads of drones. You're talking about one person was found 20 miles downriver. 20 miles. There's so much area to cover. And what does he not want you to see? And he was a little bit, just, tell me if I'm wrong, but he was almost like a little bit angry. Like, angry, like, what are they going to find? What are he didn't want anyone to bud into that area. We don't need you to be there. Like, who is he? Does he have missing family members, friends, loved ones, in that time is of the essence? It just really creeped me out. Um and it was just I don't know, something is not right. Something is not right with this high surge of water, the camps, the that and for me to have this dream, uh June 16th, I posted it up for just a little, 30 minutes or so, 2025. And then all of a sudden, less than a month later, this Camp Mystic Dam is just giving me chills because it's like the place I dreamed about. And when I go now, I can't get to that. Like I can't put the little man down in Google Earth at that dam. But when I put it down where I can and the roads and that, it's like that beautiful day, those trees, the hills, it's the same in my dream. And I'm looking on, and that man jumps in, and I'm like in horror, like, that's a dangerous place. That's dangerous. You can't swim there. And just this gulf of water, these it's like a big gate door opens up beneath him, this big gush of water. Something is, I don't know. Y'all tell me. But uh, something is really not right with this whole thing. And Texas right now is under great scrutiny. I can confirm that for everyone. I can confirm that. Wasn't that a great picture of my husband in his 4th of July shirt? uh, it was a great picture. Um, I can confirm to you that there is great scrutiny with the criminal traffickers, with the narco politicians, with this criminal funeral network, with Chihuahua's officials, narco politicians, and why I'm mentioning Governor Abbott, because he was meeting with Governor Campos, the governor of Chihuahua, Mexico, to make agreements for security and intelligence sharing. She's Sinaloa, y'all. She's Sinaloa. That's been designated. You can't aid and abet. So there is great scrutiny behind the scenes, and I can absolutely confirm that. Now, the other, gosh, we have so much breaking news. The breaking news are these audios, right? The audios of David Poche, right? Um, so that is, we're just absorbing those right now, um, and we'll be updating you. But what I can tell you is that David Poche and Leilani Hart, this opens a door to a whole new scrutiny of this, and even Carlos Mendez, because they were the three of them, David Poche, Leilani Hart, Carlos Mendez, they were the unreliable sources that Bob Moore used in El Paso Matters for his fake false stories to target our son's case. Um, so this is, and also the Walmart mass shooting. You have to understand the Walmart mass shooting and our son's case are intertwined. So absolutely targeting that, not wanting to expose that. And Bob Moore is not, who he says he is. He in our son's case, he's a co-conspirator, right? Targeting our son. We have absolutely confirmed that now with A&R Chavira Auto Group, right? And other co- corroborating evidence. We have, absolutely the evidence um, to prove that he is a co-conspirator in the case using unreliable sources. And so as more and more evidence comes out like the audio of David Poche, um, you know, uh, there's going to be more and more um, action to accountability. So, yeah, I'll have to, and that, the thing is it brought up and reminded us of the widow letter, right? Widow, and I don't want to name her name for her own safety because she was targeted for doing this. But she wrote a letter to Bob Moore of El Paso Matters, which was then graciously forwarded to or copied to us, and warning about Leilani Hart and David Poche, confirming that they were having an um, illegal relationship, because she was married at the time. She was having an illegal relationship with him. He's married too. Um, so, you know, and her being uh, dangerous, her being very dangerous. So we put that up. It reminded us. We brought that up again, and we posted it. So the evidence is, it's all coming together like puzzle pieces, and it's every day. We have enough. We've had enough for a while, but now it's all really coming together, and it's all God's timing. And now that we know that the whole funeral business is part of this, we're very patient with God. He knows what He's doing. He absolutely knows what He's doing and what He is exposing. And we, that's what faith is all about, to keep going, keep investigating, keep identifying the crime, keep documenting the crime, filing the crime, and God will do the rest. God will absolutely do the rest. So, and what are we looking for? We're looking for what God tells us to do. And you can search that too, that we absolutely have the right to find the body of our son, to demand accountability, to give him a proper burial. We absolutely have that right. And the evidence um, confirms that that is all possible. Okay. It's not like he fell out of a plane in a plane crash over the Pacific Ocean somewhere, right? That's not what happened. His life was lost on Fort Bliss. Okay. His life was taken on Fort Bliss. And, we absolutely have the right, because they know. Um, and more confessions are coming out, more information, more audios are coming out, and more investigations, other investigations, because don't forget Marco's list and Marco's investigation. There would be no exposure of that narco mass dump yard of rotting bodies without pressure, because that dump yard was government sanctioned. Okay. It was absolutely, uh, you can't even make that up, and it's so horrible. It's been probably, and pray for all the families, because to get ashes back, to think that you're cremating and you get animal ashes back, and then you find out, um, they're just dumping bodies there. That was not funeral businesses doing what they're supposed to do. Some of the pictures had the evidence of the trauma of the death still on the body. Um, some still in uniform. Some black tape all around their head. What is that all about? Um, it goes. The pictures have been hell, hell, and so pray for those families. Pray for those bodies. The churches need to get over there real quick. They need to pray over that place. They need to pray over that place, and they need to bring holy water. They they need to douse it with holy water. And yeah, I'm just uh, because the occult, what they're doing, it's it's real. It's real. And I don't know why God gave me that dream on June 16th, 15th, the night of the 15th, 16th. And then all of a sudden I look at Camp Mystic and that dam, and I'm just like, chills. So, if you are a dream interpreter, um, if you have a message, please send it. So thank you so much, everyone. Those are the uh, big evidence. Bob Moore is more evidence is coming out with him, and so that is a really huge news. Every day we give huge pieces of information. It's just incredible. So we'll let you know what these audios contain. Thank you so much. God bless you. And and I will be back tomorrow, God willing. Thank you, Anicia, for coming on with your prayers and your love all the time. And please share. Sharing is so important to get the word out about Richard and his picture and all the information that's coming out. Um, because this is an ongoing investigation. This is not a cold case. We have kept this an ongoing investigation, which is a huge accomplishment. And so there's a lot happening behind the scenes, and that needs to be shared with everybody step by step by step, so that they, for our own psych, right? Because you don't want to be in the dark and hear this kind of information coming out, um, because it's so shocking if you hear it all at one time. So, yeah, please share this information, get people educated about what's going on. And I don't know if I'm the only one that thought that Dan Patrick was being weird, like who made him God kind of thing. Like, who is he to tell family members that they can't search, that they can't get drones out there? Are you kidding me? I, no, if you're in a little dinky place, Mike can understand it, but this is Texas. This is Texas. And you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I've been in tractors on land in Texas. I've driven all over Texas. I, I walked that land, took soil samples, uh, all across that land. It is huge. I don't know what damn Pat, and then being so insensitive after the debacle in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee, and tell me if I'm missing a place, because that was a total debacle. Debacle. Am I saying it right? Um, yeah. There. I just don't know. I didn't like how he started off that press conference. No. So smug, like he owned the place, and like the people searching for their family members or neighbors that had their private helicopters or had drones, that they were a burden or something. They were getting in the way. No. I hope that a lot of them uh, ignored what he said. I hope so. And that's a big country. That's a big area. And looking for those victims is like, right, like a needle in a haystack. All eyes, all eyes need to be there. I don't understand. He didn't. Anyway. Okay, everyone. Thank you so much. And thank you, Danielle. Thank you so much. And please share. God bless you. Bye bye.